Family, friends, fellow citizens, and elected officials, I'm Eric Moore. While growing up as a child playing with my siblings, one of us or any of us would act up and my paternal grandmother would say, "Don't be ugly." We learned how to behave and not be ugly. We learned how to play fair. We learned how to respect our elders, family members, friends, acquaintances, and even strangers. If we acted up and didn't heed those words and our dad found out, what would he do? He would ask us to explain our side of the story. You got the chance to tell your side and you better not lie, because dads have a way of knowing when you lie. Lying about what you did was worse than what you did. So the first four things I learned from my parents and grandparents were: don't be ugly, share with others, take turns, don't lie. Our families, neighbors, teachers, preachers, communities instilled in us these values of right and wrong. They were right then and they are right now. These values are inherent in our legal system and our Constitution. We are united in our decency and civility. We are united in mutual respect. We are united in times of local, national, and international crises. We can be united in upholding a nation that places truth over lies and deceit. Lies and deceit are rooted out by the balance of power, freedom of the press, and in recent years, the Freedom of Information Act. A fifth thing I learned is from my maternal grandfather. He used to say, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. This value is a little different because it requires a person to use good judgment on when to speak up. On one hand, one must choose words that are not insulting to others. On the other hand, at times one must offer constructive criticism to others and not be afraid to speak up. That being said, not speaking up may potentially maintain a status quo of indifference and abuse. Elie Wiesel said it better, and the opposite of life is not death, it's indifference. There may be times when we are powerless to prevent injustice, but there must never be a time when we fail to protest. Someone has to take a stand and speak out. Many have already done so. Someone has to take a stand and speak out who is in a position of influence and power, who has access to the truth. Senator Richard Burr of North Carolina, I'm from Winston-Salem too. You co-authored the Intelligence Committee's report on Russian interference in the 2016 election. So you would know better who had the greater influence into the 2016 election. You are in a position of power and influence in the truth. It would behoove you to allow for full disclosure of all the facts, wherever they lead. It would behoove you to dispel false rumors put forth by any entity, foreign or domestic, in attempting to sway the public. U.S. Representative Virginia Foxx of North Carolina, I live in your district. You voted not to impeach the president despite facts presented by many career Foreign Service officials. Their testimony was backed up by tweets, phone call transcripts, recordings, and corroboration with other testimony. You were in a position of power and influence in the truth. It was your responsibility to push for all parties involved to testify, including the White House. Your vote is now recorded in the historical archives. Senators Richard Burr and Tom Tillis, you have the opportunity to embrace these common values and align them with our constitutional and legal procedures of fairness. Just like my dad did, he wanted to hear who started it and when we acted up. And he could tell when one of us was not being forthright. Do you have that ability? Can you tell if an elected official or an appointed official is not being forthright? I really don't need a hearing or a trial to ascertain an elected leader's competence. A leader's competence, regardless of party, is readily apparent by words, actions, and deeds. Do you know what my grandmother would say about the Access Hollywood tape of the president? She would say, "Don't be ugly." That tape was ugly. Can you imagine the president speaking that way about your sister, your daughter, your wife, your granddaughter, or your niece? Is that acceptable to you? I would encourage anyone to speak to a victim of domestic violence and ask their opinion of that tape, those words, and that attitude. Speak to a social worker or pastoral counselor and learn about domestic violence and other atrocities. Look at those tweets. Who does that? Name a world leader that has ever done that. What world leader derides public officials and private citizens in their public Twitter feed? Is that right? Is that acceptable behavior for an elected official? Is that acceptable behavior for a grown-up man? If the tweets and quotes are acceptable behavior, then read them as bedtime stories to children and quote them alongside scripture readings in church. In my opinion, the tweets are inappropriate, unacceptable, and divisive while allowing unquestionable insight into the soul of a disturbed individual whose itchy trigger Twitter fingers are inches away from the nuclear football at any given moment. That is a national security issue and fodder for enemies and allies alike. Maya Angelou has comforting words that can be applied to victims of those nasty tweet storms. She said, "You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust I'll rise." Senators Burr and Tillis, Representative Fox, until you embrace the following advice, the president's words, actions, and deeds are your words, actions, and deeds. Don't be ugly. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Share with others. Take turns. Don't lie. I know senators are saying, the House didn't do it right. Well, if that's what you believe, then do it right. Get to the truth by calling all the pertinent witnesses and presenting all the evidence. After all, it's called obstruction for a reason. Their efforts were obstructed. When a car conks out on the highway and you have to pull over, what do? You open the hood to see what the problem is. Come on, roll up your sleeves. Open up the hood and see what the problem is. If an elected official didn't do anything wrong, they have nothing to fear. Let us engage in activities that foster trust in our government. We are the United States of America. Let us unite in the truth. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 25. Therefore, having put away falsehood, let each one of you speak the truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another. Play fair. Don't be ugly. Thank you.